Most members of the U.S. House are on break this week, but as they say, the show must go on. And so those involved in the impeachment inquiry are staying on the Hill, hoping to hear testimony from more witnesses, hoping being the operative word, because 4 White House officials called to testify today, including an aide to Acting Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney and the top lawyer in the National Security Council, were no-shows, defying congressional subpoenas. Impeachment investigators are also expecting a fight over whether former National Security Advisor John Bolton, a key witness to many of the conversations at the heart of the inquiry, will show up for his scheduled hearing later this week. The issue is now the focus of a lawsuit brought by another former White House official who's refusing to comply with the subpoena to testify. But despite the litigation delays, which could continue for a while, House investigators are getting ready to move the inquiry into the new public phase. And increasingly, the voters appear to be on board. A new NBC Wall Street Journal poll finds 49% of Americans now support impeaching and removing Trump from office. It's up from 43% at the beginning of October. Although if you ask the president, these numbers are nothing but lies, and only he knows the truth.
I have the real polls. The CNN polls are fake. The Fox polls have always been lousy. I tell them they ought to get themselves a new pollster. But the real polls, if you look at the polls, that came out this morning, people don't want anything to do with impeachment. It's a phony scam. It's a hoax.
I'm joined now by one of the men behind that hoax, otherwise known as the constitutionally provided for impeachment inquiry. Congressman Jim McGovern is chair of the Rules Committee in the House, which established the procedures from here on out. Congressman, it's good to see you. Thanks so much.
Happy to be with you.
Is the hope that public testimony begins as early as next week?
That's the hope, but certainly this month, and transcripts are already being released as we speak.
Do you have any idea who the first witness is going to be? Because obviously that matters.
I don't know who the first witness is going to be.
You not know, or you're just not telling me?
I really don't know. My job was to actually put forward a process for this next phase, and that's what we did. But I don't know who the next witness is going to be.
When you've been there a while, and I've always found you to be a pretty respectful person of all around you. When you're essentially introducing your resolution on the House floor, and you can hear some of your Republican colleagues, many of whom you worked with for years, jeering you and then contending that due process rights are being denied the opposition party and, more importantly, the president. What was your personal reaction to that, Congressman?
Look, I respect the institution that I serve in very much, and I hope that my Republican colleagues feel the same way. And so as we move forward through this contentious process, that it's important to not do things that are going to diminish the House of Representatives. And when you jeer each other, that proves that you're not being serious.
Is it accurate to say that the rights given the minority party and the person the inquiry is directed at, the president, are exactly the same as those afforded the minority party in the Nixon and Clinton impeachments?
It is true, but the president's actually given some more rights.
What are they?
I have my little cheat sheet here. The president counsel may ask questions at the presentation of evidence, and the president's counsel may be invited to offer a concluding presentation at the chair's discretion, plus all the other rights. They can question anybody they want to. President can appear himself. So basically, there's nothing new here except we give this president a little bit more.
I have to say, I was really depressed when Corey Lewandowski testified in front of the Judiciary Committee. With all due respect to your colleague, Chairman Nadler, I thought he lost control of the hearing, and we all read afterwards that it's, even though it hasn't been used in decades, if a witness comes before one of these committees and is as disrespectful and as contemptuous as at least he appeared to me to be, the sergeant-at-arms could be called and a witness could be dragged away. Is that kind of stuff going to be tolerated during these hearings?
Yeah, I hope not, because look, this is a serious matter. I mean, this is impeachment is something that we rarely ever do and rarely ever invoke. I mean, we're here because the President of the United States may have abused his power and jeopardized our national security. I mean, that's why we're here.
You said, we played, and I've heard you say, I've heard it repeatedly, I didn't come here to impeach a president. I'm paraphrasing. What do you feel like? I mean, you're a kid from Worcester who, and you're now you're one of the leaders of a process that has only happened a few times in our history that I know you would agree is one of the most serious things that a legislator can ever do in his or her lifetime. What did it feel like to you?
Yeah, I mean, I felt sad. It's a very solemn occasion. I mean, look, I disagree with this president on his policies. I'm appalled by his tweets, by his behavior. But putting all that aside, I didn't run for office to impeach him. I ran for office to fight for what I believed in, and but we're at a moment where we have no choice. I mean, we either respect the Constitution or we don't.
Can I ask you one more question about the process? This is from my radio co-host, Marjorie Egan, who's going to have a stroke otherwise. And I agree with her on part of this. Hearing your colleagues 5 minutes at a time bloviating for the folks back home when we're dealing with the most serious of matters, are there going to be lawyers who have prosecutors? They will ask questions.
So one of the things that we do in our process is we give the committees the authority to have professional staff, professional lawyers be able to ask questions in a way where it's not 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, so they can actually help present the case and build the case.
Fabulous. Here's Donald Trump yesterday on a potential government shutdown on November 21st, the president.
Can you commit to no government shutdown? I mean, people that are concerned, what would you say?
It depends on what the negotiation. I wouldn't commit to anything. It depends on what the negotiation.
He wouldn't rule out a government shutdown, and there have been further stories in the press that there might be a shutdown specifically to close down the impeachment inquiry. Is that even possible, remotely possible?
No. I mean, the bottom line is, he shut the government down once before, so it's not, impossible that they'll try to do it again. But the bottom line, this is going to go forward, and him shutting the government down is not going to stop
If there's no funding resolution, the hearings will continue?
I believe that members of Congress will continue to show up, just like we did during the last government shutdown. We'll continue to show up, and we'll continue to try to work on a deal and move the business of the country forward. So, look, this process is moving forward. I can't tell you whether he's going to be impeached or not, or whether he'll be removed from office by the Senate, but I can tell you that we have a fair and transparent process in place, and it's going to move forward.
Speaking of the Senate, the Washington Post has a story saying their argument now, and I think the defenders of the president have a different argument almost every day. The argument is now, there was a quid pro quo, and he did condition the release of the $400 million in aid to these investigations, but there was not malicious intent. Now, that's one argument. At the same time, the President of the United States himself is saying there was no quid pro quo. Everybody knows it. I'll read the transcript at a fireside chat. What is the primary argument in defense of the President of the United States? Do you know what it is?
I don't know what it is, other than trying to distract and trying to confuse and create chaos. The bottom line is the President's acting chief of staff said there was a quid pro quo. The President's statement is an indication that there's a quid pro quo. So I don't know what he's talking about. And look, here's the deal. The President asked a foreign adversary to manufacture dirt on a potential political adversary in exchange for releasing military aid to that country. By the way, Ukraine is defending itself against Putin and Russia. That's a national security concern. I think it's a violation of a number of laws as well. But
seeking foreign assistance from a foreign government in an election.
And the whole point of impeachment is that there are some crimes that are, and some behavior by a president that is so appalling that we need to invoke impeachment.
I know you say, and by the way, you were one of the early people, and I have to say, to your credit, one of the earliest people, and you're part of the leadership team for Nancy Pelosi. I think maybe the earliest member of the leadership team who came out in favor, actually, on a program right here at GBH. Are you worried, though, even if this is the thing you believe you and your colleagues have to do, that this will increase the likelihood of Donald Trump getting a second term next November?
Yeah. Look, people have asked me that question before, and my response is, we can't be concerned about that. That should not factor into the equation.
You don't think about that?
You know what? In terms of whether I think this is the right thing to do, whether we should do it or not, no, I don't. Because this is something that we're doing because we want to defend our democracy and our Constitution, period. I don't know what the politics are going to be. I don't know what the politics are going to be next week, never mind next year. Bottom line, it's the right thing to do. And I said in my speech on the floor, look, 100 years from now, people are going to look back at this time and ask, what did we do? And did we stand up for our country? Did we stand up for our Constitution? Or did we just, step aside? And if we step aside, by the way, we are setting a precedent for previous for the next administrations to follow this kind of lawless behavior.
Do you have Republican friends in the House?
I do.
Right?
I have a lot of Republicans.
When you have a private conversation with them at the gym or wherever you hang out with these people,
they're appalled.
What do they say?
They're appalled.
And they're just worried that there's going to be a tweet to their constituents so that not one single Republican was even willing to say, I don't believe he should be impeached and removed, but I do believe the American people are entitled to answers the question. Not one of them was willing to say it. It's all because they're scared of the president?
And I said during the debate, I said, history is testing us right now. And what was very disappointing to me is that many of my Republican colleagues are failing this test. This isn't even a close call.
But do they say that to you in private?
Yeah, in private, they tell me that they're appalled by his behavior. and that this is the reality in their districts. They're afraid of primary opponents, and blah 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 blah, the whole kind of thing. And and I think there are some moments where you got to put politics aside. I mean,
31 Democrats, by the way, as you know better than I, voted for the impeachment resolution in the case of Bill Clinton.
Absolutely. And, and I look back to, the Joseph McCarthy era when, Republican Senator Margaret Chase Smith had the guts to stand up and, call him out for what he was, this dangerous demagogue. And, she had the courage to do it and others followed. And by the way, the people followed as well.
Do you think there's one Republican in the House or one Republican in the Senate will have the courage to do what you consider to be the right thing?
I'm hoping that will be the case because I think this president's behavior is so appalling. And I think the case against him is so strong based on what we already know, and it will get stronger, that I think it'll be clear it is the right thing to do. I don't know what the political implications for Republicans doing that may be, but I think they ought to be concerned about their legacy and about history.
If this goes according to plan, when's there a vote on articles of impeachment?
Well, I hope it's done by the end of the year. But there's no set timetable. But we do have a process, by the way, that I am very proud of, that is open and transparent, and by the way, answers all the complaints that the Republicans had up to this point.
Process authored by you, Jim McGovern. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Congressman Jim McGovern.